I went up to my sister Nikki's house and the door was locked. It normally isn't. When she let us in, she told us that she's keeping her door locked from now on and explained why. Last night, at around 2 a.m., she and her husband, Mick, heard someone frantically banging on the door. They ran downstairs to see what was going on, and the guy just came in before anyone could answer. So then there was this blonde, naked guy who looked like Chris Griffin. Standing inside of her living room. The only things he wore were a wristband that hospital patients wear and a piece of a pine tree, which he used as a loincloth. He was scared and confused, especially since Mick came downstairs with a katana in his hands. The stranger told my sister that he was running away from his mother, who said that he was a demon and ripped his clothes off. Mick gave the sword to my sister and went upstairs to find a phone to call 911. The stranger was freaking out because he thought that Nikki was going to cut him with the sword. She tried to calm him down and she gave him a towel to cover himself up. Then she saw flashlights shining in through the porch window and went to the door to meet with some policemen looking for this guy. They had to spend some time calming him down before taking him back. Before they left, the officers asked my sister if she wanted the towel back, and she said no. Due to an accidental gift label swap, my 11-year-old nephew got a shaving kit from Grandpa. He was so delighted at this that nobody had the heart to correct the situation. We figure he'll end up using it in 6 or 7 years. Went to lunch at my straight friend's house with them, their kids, her parents, and his dad. His dad is bisexual. Was dating guys a few years ago, but currently with a woman. Apparently my friend hadn't briefed his dad on my orientation because his dad said something to me about my future wife/girlfriend. I just smiled, but my friend said, "Dad, that's not his type." It seemed a little confusing and said, "Oh, you mean, oh, friend." Dad, no, don't even think it. What a wonderfully awkward holiday moment. His dad went to my in-laws today and met my 2 sister-in-laws' new boyfriends. The one openly is bi and dating men, and the other, well, let's just say I have a good feeling they are going to be real close couple of guys. My crazy homophobic aunt doesn't like being outdoors, so she stays away from my Christmas afternoon pool parties, and the atmosphere is always so nice and relaxed compared to the stressed out Thanksgiving dinners at her place. The best gifts are always the ones that involve donations to charity, and I made and received plenty of those. I treated myself to a new Corsair K95 RGB keyboard. Last night the whole family got together for a big Christmas dinner. As we were passing food around the table, my mom handed the platter of cornbread muffins and said, You have to try a muff. I know that you'll love it." An awkward silence hit the whole table for about 10 seconds before everyone busted into laughter. It was hilarious. I felt bad for my mom. You could see the terror and regret on her face immediately after she said it. The start may sound sad, but it's one of my funniest Christmas stories. When we were 2 and 4, my mother gave my little sister and I to the foster care system as a way to hurt our father. He worked on an offshore oil rig and was gone 28 days at a time, home 2 weeks. He was gone at the time and had no idea. After he heard, he came home and fought for months and finally got us back. When we came home, it was Christmas time. It was Christmas Eve and we were tucked up into our beds in our room right next to the living room and Christmas tree. Like all kids, I was nosy and overexcited for Christmas to come. I fell asleep and woke up around 3, ready to go dig under the tree before Daddy woke up. He always left the door cracked, and through the crack I could see something red. It had to be Santa. I wasn't about to get busted on Christmas Eve being awake by Santa Claus, so I stayed very still and waited. He was there for hours. My sister woke up about 6 and I explained to her that Santa was still here and we couldn't move because we were afraid to leave the bed. My dad got to sleep late and at around 11 he came into the room wondering why we hadn't woken him. He told us to come out, and as we exited I noticed that on my door handle hung 2 of those candy-filled candy canes with the red tops, and those candy canes had kept my little sister and I in bed till almost noon on Christmas morning because my little brain was certain that red cap was actually Santa Claus. Unfortunately, my grandmother, the funny racist one, went to the hospital this morning. She's in the ICU with pneumonia. We're about to leave to go to see her. Anyway, my sister has on these tight leggings. My mother just caused me to laugh so hard I cried because she asked my sister to change clothes and I quote, "I don't want to have to shoot some man 'cause you had to leave the house dressed like a hoe." Ho, ho, hoes. My one uncle regaled us with 2 very, very long stories. One about a penile catheter gone horribly wrong, the other one of which was mostly about how his father was convinced he was actually the neighbor's kid. Also, my pretty conservative uncles were all pretty vocally anti-Trump, which was encouraging, except for Uncle Catheter. I got blackout drunk and started crying during Christmas dinner. My cousin got shit-faced and tried to sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer because she was jealous that my sister and I were getting attention. For reference, she was in her 20s and we were 13. One year we put my little cousin on top of the fridge because he kept giving away answers to the other team in Pictionary. Little dude was mortified, but he stopped being a traitor. It was 5 or 6 years ago, and it was my first Christmas with a Pomeranian. I was opening my presents, and my parents always had me open the presents that obviously had video game discs and movies in it. One moment when I was opening a present, the puppy decided to run right between the couches, and in a blur of 2 pounds of fluff, he was gone. He had grabbed one of the movies and was proceeding to try to open the packaging because he wanted a present too. My grandma was drunk at Christmas and didn't want to celebrate Christmas with us. Well, my parents are alcoholics, so everyone was drunk as fuck because of the fact that we all had trouble with each other for every problem you can imagine. Except me, I was alone in my room. Fat and lonely at Christmas 24, December 2009. It is hard to explain, but the highlight of most Christmases isn't the food or the gifts or any of that. It's Auntie Sue's Christmas quiz. It's a quiz. We split into teams and compete 5 or 6 rounds of questions she prepared. There are sheets of paper with each round on, And when we're all finished, we do the answers and the scoring. That all sounds a little bit normal. It's never that. Her daughter married a German fella, nice chap, and lives in Dusseldorf with their 2 bilingual children. So one whole round being on German language and trivia seemed a little unfair to the rest of us. One question was to identify the contents of a continental meat platter from a smallish photograph cut from a magazine. Her answer came from the list of ingredients for a sort of similar one she found at the supermarket. One question was on the all answers relate to Christmas round, girls' names. Some put Holly, we had Ivy as Holly was a previous answer, and we thought she was being clever. Nobody got Carol, so we were all wrong. The accumulation of points is managed by your answer being what is on her answer sheet. Being right is often a disadvantage. It is an hour of complete and utter nonsense, normally carried out after we've all had too much wine. And anyway, I teamed up with my sister this year and won it. That's some serious bragging rights for the next 12 months. A very loud argument with a 4-year-old daughter about why Santa would not give her Comet the reindeer for Christmas. She was even willing to negotiate and let him borrow Comet for his Christmas trips around the world. Not my story, but my parents told me that when they were first married, they handmade a popcorn string to go around the tree. Over the next week, they kept noticing that pieces of the popcorn string were missing, but they weren't sure what was doing it because they didn't own any pets. Finally, one night they heard a noise out in the living room, so they went to go investigate. And it turns out there was a mouse coming out to eat the popcorn string every night. Out in the living room, so they went to go investigate, and it turns well, this happened just last year. We had food set out on the table, and we were all sitting on the chairs around it. Out of nowhere, my brother's chair snaps, and he tries to grab onto the table, but can only grab the cloth. And as he falls to the floor, he pulls the cloth with him a bit. The only thing that fell was a massive chocolate cake, but it splattered everywhere. Everyone couldn't stop laughing for the night. My younger cousin snuck my present from the tree at my grandparents' and held it hostage for about a month or so. We were all bewildered and freaked out, and my grandpa took their lab to the vet's office to make sure he didn't eat it. I remember crying because I was the only kid who didn't get a present. Out of 8 to 9 cousins, my aunt eventually found it in his room. So always make sure that all gifts are accounted for and there for Christmas, and that nothing is missing is the difference between a happy Christmas and the Christmas of a whiny, screaming child, while all my cousins lost faith in their belief of Santa Claus. Well, I wasn't born yet at the time. I was born in 96, and this happened around 94 or 95. My mum and dad had put the then brand new 6-foot tall Christmas tree up and had finished decorating it when the cat decided to climb into the tree and start clambering his way up. As expected, gravity prevailed and the whole thing fell down, destroying almost all the delicate glass baubles that hung around the tree's midsection. When I was a kid, I always thought that the glass baubles were put up high so I couldn't clumsily knock them off while helping decorate. While we had another kitten enter the household when I was just 1, apparently he loved climbing the tree just as much as his predecessor did. Hence the tradition of having all the glass decorations well out of reach of a mischievous feline. The story never fails to give me a chuckle, and it reminds me of Archie, the cat who grew up alongside me and stayed by my side even in his final few years. My family only ever got one real tree, this being my parents' first buying experience. They didn't know that you can get a slanted trunk. I actually thought Santa was real when I was 15.